sir, once again, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this wonderful festival. It would have been incomplete without your presence. So let's just get to our first question. That is, I think, by far the most important question that came to my mind is if you could please explain to us what millets are and why should we include that as a part of our lifestyle?
Yes, millets are C4 grasses, unlike rice and wheat, which are C3 grasses. C3 grasses give more yields when you provide them fertilizers and water because the way they photosynthesize glucose when they're making the grain. Whereas C4 grasses do not do that. They do not require water. They just absorb water from the atmosphere and then make their grain. So, the way they photosynthesize glucose is absolutely different. C4 means there is a stable C4 compound from which they build glucose. C3 is another stable pyruvic acid from which the rice and wheat that we are eating presently. Yeah, I should say off late because it's only 100 years that the human race has been eating. And millions of years, human race has eaten millets. Now, milli means small, millimeter, piglet, chicklet, booklet, like that, millet, because you cannot see the size of millimeter through naked eyes. They're very small. So there are more than 6,000 varieties of these C4 grasses and more than 200 varieties of grains that can serve as food for not only human beings, for birds, for pigs, for animals, and these are the wonderful grains that can grow from 10 degrees to 50 degrees centigrade range, whereas your C3 grasses can grow in a very narrow range of temperature. And that being the reason, these two grains are now losing their yields despite the GMO, despite the hybrid varieties, despite the fertilizers, despite the pesticides, despite the dams that we have been building in the last 100 years to grow these two grains so that people have food security. With all these efforts, we are losing the world food security itself because the yields of rice and wheat have been coming down steadily in the last 3 decades. I believe we have almost lost 30 to 40% of the yields that we had by the year 2000. Now 2023, it's almost 30 to 40% less. So if we are looking into future another 20 years, we might not have food for the people that are going to be in the future generations. So that is the reason why all of a sudden all the people are now talking about food security. And food security is only one aspect of this whole issue. Millets can become sovereign food for all the countries on this planet because every country can grow food. And that's what is not happening with the C3 grasses because it is the technology, it is the fertilizers, it is the genetically modified varieties, which are the seeds rights have been completely snatched away from the farmers of the world to the hands of the seed companies. So all these issues are involved in this food security concept. And besides food security, we do not have the resources of the nature being conserved. So we are not conserving when we eat rice and wheat. We are consuming the nature's resources. So all these parameters are involved and too many dimensional problems we have created in the last 100 years. Choosing rice and wheat, of course along with sugar cane also, we have been producing enormous amounts of liquor and sugar for our other purposes. So all these things put together and then the additional products of meat from these agricultural produce is also adding the carbon footprint in large quantities. So to put things in perspective, 10 billion tons of carbon dioxide, carbon footprint is just from agricultural produce alone. And the remaining carbon dioxide footprint of 4 billion is putting all things together of human activities. So this is a most dangerous aspect. If we continue into future, we will have no future at all, because we have been destroying, disseminating the fauna and flora of the planet just to produce food alone. So it's not that we cannot produce food. It is just that Green Revolution experts declared all the other things as non-food or animal food or coarse grains and primitive food. So this is the problem with the human race, that we could produce food not for 7 billion people. We can produce food even today for 70 billion people, but we have declared that as not food. So millets have been food for generation and generations, millions of years. All at a sudden, this Western thought process of making things into their hands, controlling the food production, seeds, rights, all these things have happened in the name of corporatizing food. So it's high time human race understood this, and we decorporatize food from centrally food production, distribution, and even managing the food system is absolutely unscientific. So this is what I have been working on for the last 30 years, though 25 years very actively. So the science of millets is so important because the food when we eat does not produce any disturbance in the homeostasis of the blood when you eat millets. Especially 5 grains I have taken out of many millet grains whose carbohydrate to fiber ratio is in single digit, will work wonderfully to eliminate almost all the lifestyle diseases caused by rice, wheat and sugar and milk and meat. So a lot of work, scientific work has gone in the last 25 years, and I have been trying to communicate and convince others to look into this wonderful millets that can save us from global warming, save us from global hunger, save us from food security, and the most important in my view is the food sovereignty. See, many countries are not growing their food. We can make them grow their food without any problem. I personally checked out, even Portugal, I believe, where you are sitting, is also not completely sovereign and secured for food, and they're basically importing almost all of their food materials. So it's a good opportunity, and we are at that kind of crossroads that every country can start looking at food sovereignty and food security in a new dimension. I hope I have given you in short the last 6 minutes the whole issue of millets and what they are going to offer to the coming human generations.